Omo namo bhagavate sarvatilokya prati vishishtaya buddhayate nama Tayata om brum 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 Shodaya Shodaya Vishodaya Vishodaya Asama Samanta Avabhasparanagati Kagana Swabhava Vishuddhe Abhishinjantu Mama Sarva Tatagat Sugata Varavachana Amrita Abhishekera Mahamudra Mantra Pade Ahara Ahara Mama Ayo Sandarani Shodaya Shodaya Vishodaya Vishodaya Kagana Swabhava Vishuddhe Ushnisha Vijaya Parishuddhe Sahasra Rasmi Sanchodit Sarva Tathagata Avalokini Shat Paramita Paripurani Sarva Tathagata Mate Dashabhum Pratishtite Sarva Tathagata Hridaya Adishtana Adishtite Mudre Mudre Mahamud Vajrakaya Samatana Parishud Sarva Karma Avarana Vishuddhe Pratinivartaya Mama Ayur Vishuddhe Sarva Tathagata Adishtana Adishtite Om Muni Muni Maha Muni Vi Muni Vi Muni Mahavi Muni Mati Mati Mahamati Mamati Sumati Tathata Buddha Koti Parishuddhe Visputa Buddhishuddhe He He Jaya Jaya Vijaya Vijaya Smara Smara Spara Spar Sparaya Sparaya Sarva Buddha Adhishtana Adhishtite Shuddhe Shuddhe Buddhe Buddhe Vajre Vajre Maha Vajre Su Vajre Vajra Garbe Jaya Garbe Vijaya Garbe Vajra Jwala Garbe Vajro Bhave Vajra Sambhave Vajre Vajrini Vajram Bhavantu Mama Shariram Sarva Sattva Namcha Kaya Parishuddhir Bhavantu Me Sada Sarva Gati Parishuddhischa Sarva Tata Gatascha Mam Samasvasayantu Buddhaya Buddhaya Siddhaya Siddhaya Bodhaya Bodhaya Vibodhaya Vibodhaya Mochaya Mochaya Vimochaya Vimochaya Shodaya Shodaya Vishodaya Vishodaya Samantena Mochaya Mochaya Samanta Rasmi Parishuddhe Sarva Tathagata Hridaya Adhishtana Adhishtite Mudre Mudre Mahamud Mahamudra Mantra Pade Svoha Omo Brahma Svoha Omo Amrita Ayurdate Svoha Omo Ahum Tramri Am Mama Sarva Sattvam Scha Raksha Raksha Kuru Svoha Omo A Guru Buddha Ushnisha Vijaya Sarva Siddhi Omo Amite Amito Bhave Amita Vikrante Amita Gatri Amita Kamini Amita Ayurdate Kagana Kirtikare Sarva Kleshakshayam Kariye Svoha. Ocho sampo pagyo trashi pa tuche tempe trinle yarngo da. Ege drolor zambe tse parache. Palden lame shabla solvade. Omo a guru vajradara suma timonisha sane karm. Uta varda nishri badra varsa manya sarva siddhi hum. Om guru vajradara suma timonisha sane karm. Uta varda nishri badra varsa manya sarva siddhi hum. Om guru vajradar suma timonisha sane karm. Uta vardanya shri badra varsa manya sarva siddhi hum. Pakyuke kudan dagi lo, pakyuke sundan dagi nga, pakyuke tukdan dagi ye, ten yerme chiktu jingi lo. Makyuke kudan dagi lo, makyuke sundan dagi nga, makyuke tukdan dagi ye, ten yerme chiktu jingi lo. Om muni muni maha muni shakya muni soha. Sangye chedan soge chonamla chancho pardo dani kyapsu chi. Dagi cheshe gibe sonamgi drola pinchira sangye druparash. Sangye chedan soge chonamla chancho pardo dani kyapsu chi. Dagi cheshe gibe sonamgi drola pinchira sangye druparashu. Sangye chedan soge chonamla chancho pardo dani kyapsu chi. Dagi cheshe gibe sonamgi drola pinchira sangye druparashu. In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. Through the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Sashi pöge chushi medo chan rira lingshi nide gemba di sangye shindu mikde uwaragi drogu namda shingla chuparashu yedam guru radna mandrala kam niryatayami. So, today we are here and we are going to continue to read and give some short commentary on the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, the guide to the lifestyle of a Bodhisattva. This important text, which was written about 1,500 years ago by the great master called Shantideva. And but before entering into the specific verses where we were at, and so on, I would like just to give some introduction before. Otherwise, if we just go to the verse, we are at verse 104. We just go to that verse of the 9th chapter. If we just go directly there, for many people it will be a little bit, we are lost. Where are we, So before, just some introduction so we can understand the context in which we are and why we are doing this. First of all, normally when we talk about the path to enlightenment, our spiritual path, which is one of the most important things really. When we talk about spirituality in Buddhism and everything that we are doing here, let's say, if not the most important thing, is actually the path. The path is not what we study. The path is not the methods of meditation that we use. It's not the recitation of the mantras or the meditations that we do, or not the teachings. The path is the actual process of development of our own qualities. Each one of us, there is a path that goes within each one of us. So it's development of wisdom, the development of love, compassion, love towards ourselves, love towards others, developing patience, and so on. So eliminating our inner defilements and developing our own qualities, that's actually what's the path. Okay? Normally the path is divided into 5 different paths and so on, but we're not going to go through that right now. In order for us to realize such path, in order for us to develop really our qualities, in order for us to deal with our own defilements and so on, there are different methods that have been taught. Buddha himself shared the path, how to do that. And after Buddha, there were many, many masters that took Buddha's teachings and they found a good way how to bring these teachings, how to guide their own disciples on the path to enlightenment. And from this, we have many different approaches that have developed during the centuries. But if we take most of the literature that exists within Buddhism, which is very vast, we could divide it mostly in some categories that they would be mostly like, we have one which is what we call normally the Tsenyi Gishung, or the philosophy texts, which texts that explain things in a very detailed way. Okay, so what is bodhicitta, why to develop bodhicitta, what's the definition, what's the classification. It goes in a very academic way somehow. And it's a whole way of explaining things in order for us to understand. It goes through the whole process that first we need to understand, we need to have the comprehension about things. So it's a whole way of explaining things that gives priority for our understanding. And there are many, 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 many texts about it. Okay, it's a very vast literature. Then we have the texts that are actually not explaining everything, the reason why of everything, but are mostly guiding us, directing us to develop specific types of consciousness. So to develop love towards ourselves and others and so on, which is mostly what is mostly known as the Lamrim and Lojong, the gradual path to enlightenment and the mind transformation texts, which are actually not explaining the whole philosophical aspect, but they are guiding us to develop different qualities. Okay? Then we have the whole many meditational practice, so where we have like meditative techniques and the whole explanation about all these meditations and so on, okay? So the Bodhisattva Charyavatara is the second type. It's not a text to study. It's a text to read. Also, we need to study to understand it, but mostly it's a text that we need to meditate on it. Meditate in the real sense of the word in Tibetan, which means to familiarize. By reciting it many times, by reading it many times, by reflecting upon its meaning, we familiarize our mind with different states of consciousness that the text is guiding us through. Okay? So it's really very powerful in this sense. But we need to remember it's not a text that has been written in order for us to study, like a philosophy text. It's not a text of matter only of understanding. Its most important value is that it was a text written by a great master called Shantideva, in which he shared his own experience. And the text itself was written in order to help him to familiarize himself with his own knowledge and to help us to familiarize ourselves with the knowledge. Because one thing is learning, another thing is realizing. Once we have learned something, we need to familiarize ourselves with our knowledge so that it doesn't remain only as knowledge, it becomes realizations. Okay? So the Bodhisattva Charyavatara comes with this intent of helping us to realize what we first understand. Okay? So the way how in Tibetan we say Chitu Chawe Dulcha. Chitu Chawe Dulcha means the disciple to whom the text was originally taught. So this teaching originally to whom it was taught. It was taught to those that already had the understanding but needed to familiarize their mind with it. Okay? So that's why if we go through the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, there are many parts which there's not so many explanations about some things, but very often is a way of remembering us of what we supposedly already know. Okay? To remind us about what we supposedly already know. So, It's a way of familiarizing our mind with different stages of consciousness, also with different concepts also. That's why also when we need to comment on it, here in the context in which we find our days nowadays, it takes a long time because we need to explain everything. Because many people don't know it, so we need to go through the whole explanation about things, okay? But originally, it was taught to people that already knew about the subject, but they did not realize it yet. So that's why you need to repeat and you need to read again. It's a way of directing the mind in order to familiarize with it, okay? As we go through this path to enlightenment, the path to enlightenment, this process of developing our inner qualities, is divided into many steps. And in this text, Shantideva guides us through this path. And Shantideva guides us through this path. The text itself was called the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, Janju Simpe Chöpala Jukpa. Bodhisattva, Bodhi means enlightenment, Sattva means being. So the being of enlightenment, Janju Simpa. Chöpa means behavior. Jukpa means to enter. So one of the translations would be entering the behavior of the Bodhisattva, or entering the lifestyle of a Bodhisattva, guide to the lifestyle of a Bodhisattva. We can translate it into many different ways. Jukpa means to enter. Chöpa means behavior, means conduct, lifestyle somehow. Okay? Janchup means enlightenment. Sempa means the one that has the mind off. Okay? So Janchu Sempa Chöpala Jukpa. Entering the behavior of the one that has the mind of enlightenment. Okay? So what does this mean? It means that Shantideva is guiding us through the process of how I need to behave. What's the right conduct, internally, externally, of a Bodhisattva, of the one that really wishes to reach enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. And here, it goes mainly through what are called the 6 perfections. So this whole process is mostly developing generosity, morality, patience, joyful effort, concentration, and wisdom. When we talk about developing these perfections, it doesn't mean that they already come perfect and one day suddenly we develop the perfection. It's we need to perfect these qualities. We all have generosity, we all have morality, patience, effort, concentration, and wisdom. It depends how much we have. Some have more, some have less, but we all have these qualities. So it's a matter of developing these qualities until the point that we perfect them, okay? Which is a little far away, but we can get there. Through this whole process, we need to be very patient with ourselves. We need to respect the size of our legs on the steps that we need to do on our path, okay? So the Bodhisattva Charyavatara is guiding us through the development of these qualities. But it starts on the first chapter talking about the importance of bodhicitta itself, the importance of the mind of enlightenment. Because the basis of all, before developing the other qualities, the first basis is we must wish to reach enlightenment. We must develop the mind of bodhicitta, you know. One of the main reasons, if not the main reason, why we have not yet reached enlightenment is because we simply don't want. No. Now we are by the end of year 2014. How many times in this year have we thought about enlightenment? How many times have we wished deeply, I must reach enlightenment? I don't know. Maybe every day, maybe 3 times a day. Maybe not. Okay? Normally when we do the prayer, Sangya Chadan Sogi Chanam Lachan Chubardo Dani Kapsuchi Dagi Chinsu Kibisanam Gitrola Penji Sangya Trubasha. May I reach enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. No, we say in the prayer. Do we really mean it? Not. Something we need to reflect for ourselves. But the point is that it's so important to have this strong intention to reach enlightenment. Otherwise, what can happen is that we do our practices, we recite the mantras, we do the meditations, and everything that is wonderful, and it's all very good. But very often, if we do not have the mind that wishes to get out of samsara, that wishes enlightenment, basically what can happen is that finally we use spiritual methods for mundane reasons. Which means we use the meditation, we use the mantras, we use the philosophy, we use the blessings, the presence with the guru and everything else. Why? Because we are a little bit nervous, we want to feel better, because we want to get cured from a physical disease, or because we want to feel our life more meaningful, whatever. Okay, which is okay. It's much better to use a spiritual method for mundane reasons than using mundane methods for mundane reasons, okay? It even works better. But still, it's not spirituality. We are not on the path to enlightenment. The path to enlightenment comes from the moment that we wish to reach enlightenment. It can help to enlightenment, the other part, but it's not the actual path. So it comes from the moment that we really deeply wish to reach enlightenment. It's not something obvious, it's something that we need to generate, okay? So we shouldn't say, oh, I don't have it, oh, forget about me, it's impossible. No, it's something that we need to generate. Because otherwise, what happens sometimes, quite often actually, is that we pass on our life basically trying to create a zone of comfort zone. What we do basically is we try to avoid suffering. Oh, this I don't like, that I don't like. So we try to avoid what makes us suffer. We try to gain what gives us pleasure. And we try always to live within a comfort zone. Where we are happy, where everything is fine, where everything is good, where I'm comfortable, no conflicts, everything nice. As soon as something appears, we must try to send it away. So we pass a good deal of our life basically trying to creating a comfort zone. And some of us, we may even use the Dharma in order to create a comfort zone. We like the prayers, we like being nearby nice people, we create many things, and basically what we do is we can even use the Dharma in order to try to create a sort of a comfort zone where everything is nice and so on. Okay? Which is okay. I'm not saying this is something bad or negative, okay? We don't need to feel guilty if we do it. But it's not the final goal. We start to practice Dharma deeply in the moment that we don't care if we are or if we are not in a comfort zone. Where we want is something to go beyond the comfort zone. Where we need to develop our qualities, where we need to deal with our defilements, where we recognize that if I am not feeling comfortable where I am, it's because there is something wrong within myself that I need to deal with. Is it my selfishness? It is my attachment? It is my fear? What it is that is making me feel that way? So instead of trying to avoid all the time the situations and the people and this and that, blah, 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 blah around us, we recognize what is within myself, and I want to reach a state of well-being, of peace, of joy, of satisfaction that is totally independent of where I am, with whom I am, in what situation I find myself. So that's the wish. I must get out of samsara. And then I see that in order to help others, I have no other choice than developing my own qualities. So may I reach enlightenment for the benefit of all. So the mind that wishes to get out of the cycle of suffering deeply is the basis for the whole rest of the path. And this is something very important. It's not obvious to develop this type of mind. Okay, it's something that we need to reflect upon, we need to cultivate it. But I think if we use this term of the zone of the comfort zone, it may help us to understand a little bit better that our path is not only creating a comfort zone. It is mostly dealing with our own shadows, dealing with our own defilements, developing our own qualities. And whenever we get out of the comfort zone, means that something is touching something that we have inside that is not comfortable. Then it's coming out, it's painful. My selfishness was touched, so it comes out, and then it's painful. My hatred, my aversion, my jealousy, my envy, the traumas that we have from this and other lives, and so on. So things touch us. And because we don't like to feel that pain, what we do? We try to not touch it anymore. Instead of simply dealing with the actual sickness. Okay? So this is something that it doesn't mean that actually we need to avoid completely dealing with the difficult situations. No, we need to also respect our own limits. But we need to have clear in our mind that our objective is not to create a perfect world around us. But our objective is for us to deal, let's say, in a perfect way with the world around us. Okay? That's the objective, that's the direction that we go. And in order to reach there, what do we need to develop? Generosity, morality, patience, joyful effort, concentration, wisdom. Love towards others, love towards ourselves, so on. Okay? So that's the path. So this goes to the first chapter. Once we have developed the mind that really wishes to get out of suffering, the mind that really wishes to reach enlightenment, it's not enough. In the sense that it's very important, it's very beautiful, but when we develop a positive state of mind, how many times have happened that we developed a positive state of mind and later we lose it? Many times, no? We know at a certain moment positive conditions arise, and then we have that mind of faith and connection and love towards ourselves and others, and it's so beautiful and it's so deep and we are so happy, but it's a happiness that is a deeper state of happiness. And then suddenly we lose it. Okay? It's not enough just to develop. We must learn how to keep it. That's why Shantideva, after going through the explanation of the importance of bodhicitta, he goes through the next chapters explaining how to protect bodhicitta, how to keep the mind of bodhicitta. We need to protect the state of mind. Because sometimes we think, oh, once I develop a state of mind, oh, that's enough, I have done. No. I have not yet created such level of familiarization with it that it comes spontaneously at any moment. So what do I need to do? I need to protect this state of mind. I need to cultivate it. I need to keep it alive. And in order to protect this state of mind, we need basically two methods are taught by Shantideva. One is to accumulate merit and to purify our negativities. So we need to generate positive energy. We need to purify our negativities. And by that, it's helping us a lot to keep a positive state of mind. Because what can happen sometimes is that we generate a very positive state of mind, but then later we don't have the merits to keep that state of mind alive. So we lose it. So we need to generate positive energy, we need to accumulate merits, we need to purify our negativities. And the second method is we need to develop our consciousness, which means conscientiousness, which means to be aware of things that we already know. For example, are we going to die or not? Yes, we are going to die. So, conscientiousness means to have coherence with what actually we already know. To be conscious in the sense that to follow what we know that is right and to follow what we know that is wrong. Okay? So it's not only, it's a matter in this chapter, Shantideva is actually showing us, remembering us of things that we already know. Now his mind reminding us, okay, we are going to die. Life is impermanent. It's very precious, the conditions that we have, and so on. So it's like reminding us of things that we already know. But by reminding us of things that we already know, but that normally we forget, we are able to keep our mind in the right track. Otherwise, it's just the first little difficulty because this person said this and that person said that, and the things that I didn't go in the way how I expected, and things are not in the way that I really want, or today I feel a little bit uncomfortable because my hormones are upside down. And then what happened? Everything is negative and give up everything and so on, okay? So, we really need to create stability of our mind. And we do this by accumulating merit, by purifying our negativities, and by being conscious, by reminding ourselves of things that we already know, okay? Which basically is the preciousness of this life, the preciousness of having met with the Dharma, the reminding ourselves of the good things that we have, and also reminding ourselves of impermanence, of the law of karma, and so on, okay? So there is a whole chapter about it within the Bodhisattva Charyavatara. Once we develop that, once we're able to keep this mind, we need to use the mind of enlightenment to do something. And in order to reach enlightenment, we must develop the perfections, which means generosity, morality, patience, effort, joyful effort, concentration, and wisdom. So then Bodhisattva Charyavatara is guiding us how to develop these qualities. So there is the whole part on morality, then there is the whole part on the whole chapter, for example, on patience, which is one of the most beautiful chapters that I really like. Then there is the 6th chapter. Then there is the whole chapter on joyful effort, on concentration, and now we are on the 9th chapter of wisdom. Okay? We're not going to go through the whole chapters right now, otherwise simply we will never finish the text, no? So, this is the way through which Shantideva is guiding us on the development of these qualities. Okay? Bene. So, as we go through the 9th chapter, we will start from the verse number 1, just reading the first verse, and we go back to verse 104 where we stopped last time. And the first verse says, Nyala dida tamchenye tube sherab tundu sung, te china dunga da shiwar dube sherab ke. The sage, who is Buddha Shakyamuni, has spoken about all these branches, which means generosity, morality, patience, joyful effort, and concentration. So the sage, Buddha Shakyamuni, has spoken, has taught about all these branches for the sake of discriminating awareness, for the sake of developing wisdom. Therefore, generate discriminating awareness with the wish to pacify sufferings. Teichina dunga da shiwar döbe shirabke. Little bit the text in Tibetan, the first line is a little bit the other way around. It says, therefore, those that wish to pacify suffering generate such wisdom. So if we wish to pacify suffering, we must generate wisdom. Okay? So why? That's the first thing I'd like to explain. So, why we need to develop wisdom? As Shantideva said, those that wish not to suffer, wish to pacify suffering, must develop wisdom. Why? Basically, all of us, it doesn't matter where we are, who we are, we all do everything that we do, guided with this very profound and common instinct, common wish, that is the wish not to suffer, that is the wish to be happy, basically. Everything that we do. In our life, we constantly try to avoid situations that generate suffering. We try to gain situations of pleasure that makes us happy. We do this constantly, and we do in the best way as we can. We are really putting an amazing effort to be happy. But very often it simply doesn't work. And what do we do normally in our life in order to be happy? We try to avoid situations that we see as causes of suffering. We try to gain situations that we see as causes of happiness. And in order to do that, we develop attachment towards what generates us happiness. we develop aversion towards what generates us suffering. And what happens as a consequence? We suffer. Okay? So, if we look, just try for one moment to observe our own selves, our own lives, okay? If we stop reflecting about other things and simply we observe our own life, the way how we live our life, and we see that how much time of our life, how much space of our life is being taken by attraction and by aversion. Quite a lot. A great and based on aversion. I like this, I don't like that. What I see as a cause of happiness, I try to get it more near to me. I have attraction. What I see as a cause of suffering, I want to far away. Aversion. From this, we develop attachment. One of the definitions of attachment is to grasp, to grab as something that we see as a cause of happiness and we don't want to let it go anymore. No, we hold at it, and this is my happiness, I'm not letting it go anymore. But what happens? Sooner or later, things are impermanent. Even if we are holding as tight as we can, it's going to slip away. And then what happens? We suffer. We generate aversion. Who let it go away? Why did it go away? Or whatever. But we live in this constant game of attraction and aversion. Why? Because we want to be happy, actually. And what do we develop out of this attraction and aversion? We develop anger, hatred, miserliness, jealousy, envy, fear, instability, and so on. Okay? All the things that actually generate us suffering. So, basically, we don't want to suffer, and in order not to suffer, we do everything that makes us suffering. That's why we are called ignorant beings. That's ignorance. Ignorance in Sanskrit is called avidya. A means known, vidya means to see. Vid in Sanskrit means to see. It's the word that originally gives the root for the Latin word videre, which means to see. It comes from the Sanskrit vid, or vidya, which means to see in Sanskrit. Avidya, not to see, to be blind. Okay? So ignorance is the inability of seeing things. It's like, what is our ignorance? We want to be happy, but we don't see the way to happiness. It's not that we don't want. We do love ourselves. We do want to be happy very much, but we don't know how to. So the process of developing wisdom is the process of gradually understanding more and more what makes us really happy, where is our suffering actually coming from, and being able to develop what makes us happy and eliminate what creates us suffering. That's the process that we need to go. And during this process, there is a moment in which we start understanding and realizing that our defilements generate suffering. For example, as anger, jealousy, pride, miserliness, and so on. So then at this process, there is a moment in which we can really develop this strong intention not to get angry, for example, and we can do many methods in order to avoid anger. And it really works well, okay? There are many meditations and methods that we can use in order to avoid anger. It works very well. We can really develop a sort of stability and not being angry and so on. But it works as long as we are putting the effort not to be angry. If we do not develop the deeper level of wisdom, as soon as we stop putting the effort, anger will come back again later. So the only way really to eliminate this constant game of attraction and aversion, to eliminate anger, jealousy, pride, miserliness, and so on in a deeper level, is by developing true wisdom. Is by realizing how phenomena exist. It's to develop the true coherence of reality. Is to experience reality for what it is. and not for what we want it to be. Okay? In the moment that we are able to experience reality for what it is, then we really relax deeply. And we stop fighting with the world. We stop trying to create a reality that is the way how we want it to be. And we stop being in conflict. Okay? So, the aim that we have is the one of being happy. Even the bodhisattvas that have the greatest level of compassion and love towards others, they also want to be happy. And what a bodhisattva does? Develops wisdom. That's the main thing. Wisdom is not conceptual wisdom. It's a deep state of consciousness in which we experience reality in a coherent way with what reality actually is. That's what we need to develop. Until the moment that we live in an incoherent way with reality, we are going to suffer. No other way. Okay? So, as Shantideva said, Yenla dida tamcheni tübe şerap döndüsüm. Tei çirna dungel da şivar döbe şerap ke. For that reason, those that wish to pacify suffering should develop wisdom. Because it's by developing wisdom that we can actually, truly pacify our suffering. And what do we mean by wisdom? It means to experience reality in a coherent way with what reality actually is. Okay? This is basically what do we mean, trying to make it simple. Okay? So, there is a whole process of how to do that. And this is what we need to do. Trying to make an introduction. As we said before, we try always to be happy in many different ways. And as we have seen, it's not really always working. We try to be happy in a way, then it's not working here. We try to be happy in another way. And very often, what we really do is that we put a big deal of effort to get a very momentary result. But when we talk about developing wisdom, let's try to understand a little bit better what we mean by this coherence. And I want to start from the other side, which is the side of ignorance. Because it's very important for us to be able to see our own ignorance, to understand how we perceive the world now, where I am, in which state I am now. So then after we can talk about the stages that we can develop a wisdom. But first we need to see where we are right now. Okay? So, first thing is that we do suffer. Why? Where is our suffering actually coming from? We are living at one very fortunate part of the world, in the sense that we are materially very rich, in the sense that, most of us, if we look from our suffering, which type of suffering we have more, physical suffering or mental suffering? Mental suffering. This is the very clear sign that we live in a very rich part of the world. Okay? This is the first distinction between rich and poor. Normally, it's said that the poor suffer mostly from physical suffering, the rich suffer mostly from mental suffering. Okay, so we suffer mostly from mental suffering. We are quite good in avoiding physical suffering. If we have hunger, we find food right away. If we are thirsty, we find something to drink. If we are cold, we manage to cover ourselves or to develop heat. Outside, not inside. If we are whatever, we are always finding a solution. If we have pain, we try to get a medicine just to avoid our pain. We are always doing things to avoid our physical suffering. But we still have a lot of mental suffering, right? If we look at our own mental suffering, if we really analyze it and we try to observe it, there is one part of suffering which relates to the actual moment of suffering, to the actual situation. Okay? And then there is a great deal of suffering that relates not to the actual moment, but to the fact that things are not in the way how they should have been. That we suffer because you are not the way you should have been. I suffer because, the situation should not have been like this, should have been in a different way. There is a great deal of suffering in which we suffer because reality is not in the way how we expected it to be. Okay. So, I suffer because you have a behavior that you are not supposed to have. I suffer because the weather is not the way it should be. I suffer because yesterday was hot, today is snowing. Oh, how it's possible, I suffer because things happen in a way how I think they shouldn't be in that way, and so on and so on. I suffer because I am not in a way how I think I should be. Okay? So, if we take, I think like 98% of our mental suffering is not really related to the actual fact that we suffer at the moment. But it's very much related to our inability of accepting the world, the reality for what it is. And we suffer a lot out of this incoherence in which we expect things to be in a way, then they are not in the way we expect them to be, and then we get upset. It's really, for me, it's really a sort of arrogance in which we expect the world to be the way how we want it to be, how I see it. I expect others to be how I want them to be, and so on. So really, when we look from that point of view, we do really suffer a lot from that, from this sort of expectation. And this is coming actually from our own ignorance of not seeing the world for what it is, not seeing reality for what it is. And what it is, how is it actually reality? It's interdependent. We're not able to perceive the interdependence that exists within everything. The law of cause and effect. The fact that everything depends on their own parts. The fact that everything exists in dependence with the observer. By not seeing the interdependence of things, we expect things to be the way how we want them to be. Does it work? No. Okay. So, we need first of all to be able to see our ignorance, and that's a very important step. Otherwise we could be talking here about the great wisdom, high-level wisdom. But if we just talk about the high-level wisdom and we are not able to see our own ignorance, it's something too far away. We idealize wisdom, we put it far away, and we are not able to see our own ignorance, and then it just becomes something completely intellectual. It's like just an intellectual game to imagine wisdom. Wonderful, but it's not touching ourselves. So we really need to see our ignorance, starting from the small way, It's not something that we do in 1 way or in half an hour. It takes half a life really to see ignorance clearly, maybe, It takes time. But it's something that we must start doing, or we must continue if we have already started. So the process of developing wisdom is first of all seeing ignorance. How do I relate myself to the world that doesn't work? I am arrogant because I expect reality to be how I want it to be. And when reality is not what I want it to be, I suffer. Okay? And I expect reality not to be interdependent. I expect reality just to be solid as I want it to be. And from that, we suffer. Okay? I don't want to put hurry in our own understanding. I want us to understand things gradually, but to reflect upon them. Okay? So, let's first try to see, really, how much we suffer, how much we live in conflict when we are in front of things and we are not able to accept them for what they are, which is they are interdependent. We see things in a solid way, and we're not able to go beyond that way, and we suffer because the way how we see things and how we relate to things. And actually we do the double game because we see things as being solid, as existing out of their own characteristics. So when we see them as being solid good, we attach them and we want them not to change. When we see them as being solid bad, we suffer a lot out of it and we go into conflict. Okay? And actually there is no solid good, there is no solid bad, there is just interdependence. Some things we can see them as good, and another moment they're going to transform because they're also impermanent, and then they're going to be seen in another way, and things are constantly transforming and are constantly changing. And actually everything is interdependent, and we can relate ourselves in many different ways to the same situation. Okay? But because things appear to us as being solid, as being independent, we grab at this way. So when we see something that we see as good, we are attached to it, and it cannot become different. When we see something as bad, we get attached to the bad view of it being solid as bad, and we want just to put ourselves away from it. Okay? So, by not seeing phenomena as being interdependent, later we are going to go a little bit deeper into understanding what we mean by phenomena being interdependent. We generate this attraction and aversion. Okay? So, to experience reality in a coherent way, it means to experience reality in an interdependent way. Understanding that things are interdependent and not trying to see them, not seeing them as being solid, as being autonomous, as being inherently existent. We will go into more details about this later, but this is just to start understanding what do we mean by wisdom, what do we mean by ignorance at the same time, okay? So, trying to get to the point of this morning of why we need to develop wisdom. What do we mean by developing wisdom? We can do a lot of effort in order to abandon anger. We can take an object, let's say there is a situation that makes us to feel angry, that generates us suffering, and I see that object as a cause of suffering, so what I want to do, I want to avoid it. Okay? And actually there are many ways how I can deal with this situation. I can get angry in front of the object, I can feel annoyed, but I'm not really going to do something about it. I can react verbally, I can be in silence, but inside I have different thoughts and so on and so on. There are many, many ways how we can actually deal with the situation. But there are some positive ways. For example, I can practice patience and I can see the situation as an opportunity to practice patience. Oh, how good this person is treating me in this way because I can practice patience. I can see the object of anger as an opportunity to practice patience. I can see the object of anger as an opportunity of spiritual growth. I can see it in many ways. Okay? But as long as I will see it as an object of anger, there will always be anger will always be there, ready to appear. The only way of eliminating completely anger is not having any more an object of anger. So, there is a big difference of seeing a situation as an object of anger that I can see it, of related to a situation that is an object of anger that I can see it as an opportunity of growth or as an object of compassion, and seeing the object as an object of compassion. There is a big difference between the two. Okay? This example I was giving before with this object. What is this object? It's a bell, right? Okay. What happens if now I say, okay, this becomes a glass to drink water? Okay? Can it fulfill the functions of a glass? Yes, no? Someone may say, oh, but you cannot put it on the table. It will not stay stable holding water. Even in the airport, sometimes they have these sorts of glasses made like a cone, so you don't leave the glasses around full of water, no? So, it fulfills the functions of a glass. Okay? So I take it now and I say, okay, from now on, this is a glass, no more a bell. And we come in and we see the Lama drinking in his new glass. We may even think, oh, what's a strange thing? What's the meaning? Drinking from the source of wisdom or whatever. The bell symbolizes wisdom. So we can have many different thoughts and ideas. What does it mean? And so on. But actually, it's just my new glass. Okay. But when we look to it, and if I tell you, okay, now everybody, you take your own glass. How do we see it? As a glass or as a bell that is being used as a glass? A bell that is being used as a glass, right? Why? Why is it a bell being used as a glass? Because it's a bell. Because for us, it exists as a bell independently of anything else. So, there is a big difference to see this object as a bell that functions as a glass and to see it as a glass. Okay? Because actually, the only difference of it being a bell or being a glass is the value that I attribute to it. That's all. The same way is related to the object of anger. Something is just an object of anger or an object of compassion according to the value that I attribute to it. But I'm not going to be able to see it really and to relate to it as a glass as long as I see it as being inherently existing as a bell. So I'm not going to be able to see something as an object of compassion until I see it as being inherently existing as an object of anger. So in the moment that we take away the ignorance that see phenomena as being inherently existing in a way or in another, we take away the basis for all the other mental defilements to sustain themselves. No more anger cannot sustain itself anymore. Jealousy, envy, hatred, aversion, fear, and so on and so on. So, in the moment that we eliminate ignorance, we are eliminating the basis for all the other defilements to sustain themselves. That's why, as Shantideva said, for those that want to pacify suffering must develop wisdom. That's why we must develop wisdom, because we don't want to suffer. And by developing wisdom, we take away the solid basis for the other defilements. So, finally, what is this object? Nothing more, nothing less, that functions and characteristics of a glass based on the unity of parts. Okay? So it depends on the value that we attribute to it. It doesn't exist by itself as this thing or that other thing. Okay? So, in the similar way is with all our negative emotions also, and the objects to which we project it. So that's why it's important for us really to realize such wisdom. I'm happy that we have few days to go on, and then we can talk about the subject with no hurry. So let's just today reflect a little bit upon the importance of developing wisdom and how our own ignorance is actually functioning. And then the next days we are going to go through the actual verses of the Bodhisattva Charyavatara. Okay? We just do the short mantra of Namgyalma a little bit, and then we stop. Omo Brum Soha, Omo Amrita Ayurdate Soha, Omo Brum Soha, Omo Amrita Ayurdate Soha, Omo Brum Soha, Omo Amrita Ayurdate Soha, Omo Brum Omo Amrita Ayurdate Soha, Omo Brum Soha, 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 Omo Amrita Ayurdate Soha. Jetsun lame kutse rapten chi namkara chinle cholchur gepada losan tempe dreme sasumgi drowe munse tatu ne gyurch Nimo dele tsendele nime kuyan delekshin Nintsen taktu delekpe kuncho sumge jingilo Concho sumge ngodruk sol Goncho Sumge Trashisho. Oma Hun Tamba Lame Sangye Rimbo, Chekyoba Lame Tamche Rimbo, Remba Lame Gendu Rimbo, Chekyamne Kuncho Sumla Chopa Bu, Locho Sambo Pagyu Trashipa, Tuche Tembe Tinle Yarngoda, Peche Drolo Zambe Zebarache, Panden Lame Shela Chopa Bu.